got a ton of Jordans too.
Yeah, no, I enjoy walking around in my shoes and they get scuffed and dirty. So like, that's part of the reason I also never bought a pair because I'm like, I know they cost a lot, and I know that
too much work to keep
people
them
who
clean.
love them, the people who love them would probably try to hang me up by my toenails if they saw me just walking around in them.
What are you doing?
Right. So I'm like, I'll just save everybody the agony and just not buy them.
There's a Netflix show. It's called Slobby's World, where the guy he deals in shoes and like all sorts of like hip hop culture clothing, and he has a place down in Florida, and like just some of the stories of the people with shoes on that show. It's a real. It only lasted for one season. It's a fun like half-hour episode watch. It's really quick to do it, but it's crazy. Like even he deals in like the 80s Gucci and like a bunch of other stuff that like I haven't seen in forever, like throwback jerseys and all sorts of stuff. So it's super interesting if you're even like remotely into that stuff. And he goes to people's houses and he buys and sells like crazy.
That's cool.
It's fun. Yeah,
I'm a sandal person. I like to wear sandals almost all year round. There was a point in time where I don't think I wore shoes for 2 years, and I live in Minnesota, so that is.
Now, are you flip flops, slides, or like Jesus joggers, Tyler?
I am flip flops.
Okay, I'm a flip flop guy too. I can't do the slides.
I can do both. Yeah, no, I can do both. Depends. Like obviously the slides you wear with socks, and the thongs without socks.
Yeah.
I mean,
you can wear the thongs with socks though.
Yeah, that's weird and uncomfortable. Like that's not.
You look down, you got the ninja foot,
and people will judge you for it.
Yeah, that's not right. Like you do it's like a penguin or something. It's not natural.
I do that when I take out the trash, and it takes me a while to get out there.
When I used to play flag football, I'd wear the tall knee-high socks and with flip-flops on, and then change into my shoes. Like in the game, people would look at me, and I'm like, "What? I don't care."
No, that makes sense. I understand that.
Yeah, I didn't care.
Yeah,
it's easier to store a pair of flip-flops than it is another pair of sneakers in a bag.
Absolutely,
that's the way I look at it. I'm all about efficiency and working smarter, not harder, I guess.
Right. I will tell you that real quick. I went to college with a guy who, for the 4 years I knew him in college, did not wear shoes. Ever walk around, go to class barefoot, do everything barefoot.
Really?
Because I remember asking him one time, and he said he read something on the internet that said shoes were like evil or from the devil. I never really got the story. Like it was like shoes were from the devil or something like that.
The devil.
And I'm like, bro, the ground is dirty. Like I don't know, wear shoes or something. Like,
he's just like calloused feet.
Yeah, I mean he had like big rock hard feet. He was a large man. He's from I want to say Vermont or New Hampshire, somewhere in that part of the country.
I'm originally from New Hampshire, so Vermont sounds probably correct.
Okay. All right.
Vermont is very much like a hippie type of culture in Vermont.
Yeah.
Like a lot of craft breweries and things of the like.
I can say that probably in 4 years I can easily count on one hand and have several fingers left over the number of times I saw this dude wearing shoes. So
that's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
He's like Fred Flintstone walking around.
Basically, right.
He's got his floorboards cut out in his car.
Oh man.
What are you doing? All right. So Tyler, you let me know if you want. Do you want to pause or you just want me to go like into the thing?
Hold on.
So Marcus, we're gonna yeah. Go ahead, Tyler.
Yeah, I just pause, then start up our usual, but
yeah. So what I'll do is I'll bring it in. Marcus, I'll introduce you. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Do the whole like, this is me, this is what I do, this is what I'm doing, like all that good stuff. We got some fantasy news to go over, so I'll cover that and then shoot to you guys for some opinions. We have a sponsor read, so we'll do that real quick. That won't take too long. And then we will go into some dynasty thoughts and things of that. Like, so we've all had rookie drafts going on. I've had a startup or two, so we can talk about maybe some interesting things that happened during those, and then obviously some rookies that you think can make an impact in 2020 will be the main focus of the pod. So sound good?
Cool.
All right, Tyler, you let me know when you want to go. I'll do a real soft Pete Overzet style. I love I'm in a league with Pete. We draft in person. He's funny as shit, dude.
Is he as funny in real life as he is on the internet?
He is. He's goofy and is funny in real life. Like, yeah, he is. He's just that dude. That's him all the time.
Yeah. That's kind of what I assumed. So
yeah, he's super funny. Good, Tyler. Welcome back to Dynasty Happy Hour. I'm your host, Doug Eddy. I'm here with my co-host, Tyler Gunther, as well as Tim Keller. And we have a special guest this week. He's going to talk to us a little bit on some Dynasty stuff going on, as always. But we got some startups. We got some rookie drafts. We're going to talk about impact rookies in 2020 with friend of the show, Marcus Grant. Marcus, welcome in this evening.
Hey, I appreciate you guys having me on. How you guys doing?
I'm living the dream.
I'm like the nervous guy. I'm like the nervous guy right now because like this is a bucket list for me. So it's like, hi.
Hi, I'm Tyler.
Yeah, I'm the one that's like, oh God, what do I say? What do I do? And then I overthink it. Then I mix sentences together, and I just sound weird. So I'll just be in the corner.
We've all been there. We've all met that person where you're just like, and then afterwards you're like, oh, I was an idiot. Yeah, like that.
Yeah, you overthink it. Yeah.
I met Matthew Berry in person, and that was a little intimidating, but he was super cordial. Like, I gave him my business card, and he followed me on Twitter. So I was like, that's pretty awesome. Cool. So, yeah, I met him at a fantasy fest in Boston, and, super nice guy, and it was really cool. I chopped it up with him for a few minutes, and, it was like, all right, this is like, the godfather of fantasy football, like the most well-known person in fantasy, right? So, but yeah, super nice guy in person. So that was really
Did you ask him about the process of writing Crocodile Dundee in Los Angeles, though?
I did not. I Crocodile Dundee too. Yeah. No, I did not. I've read about it. I read Fantasy Life and knew about it already, but I didn't go into any Crocodile Dundee takes.
I love that. I love that spot in the book. I laughed so hard.
Yeah, I haven't read that book in a while. I got to go back and reread it. I got time, so I should probably.
We've all got time now.
I got time. I should be reading. I should be actually reading more reading things other than Twitter, I guess is what I should be doing. Yeah, I find myself on Twitter all the time.
I got the Clifford books I got to run through, and then I'm hoping I can move on to something a little like Berenstain Bears, maybe
some Shel Silverstein, something a little bit more on the next level. We'll get you to a novel soon, we'll get you maybe like a Tolkien book in like 20 years.
Hey, in real life, I did read The Hobbit, and that is a great book, but yeah, it took me a while.
Well, the thing about the Tolkien books too is they describe every little thing to the most finite detail. So he's like describing a rock that's like by a foot, and you're like, oh my god.
Yeah, like Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones.
Let's move it along. JRR. Let's keep this thing going.
Yeah. So let's get into some fantasy news. We've got a few different things this week. A lot of it is rumors and whispers, but I think they're worth mentioning here. So the first thing I want to talk about is NFL insider Adam Kaplan reports that the Eagles have interest in free agent Carlos Hyde. Now, I think we all, the Miles Sanders believers out there, me included, I like Miles Sanders a lot, start to panic a little bit. Tyler actually sold Miles Sanders this week. I think he's a little scared. I'm going to go to Tyler first on this one. So you sold Miles Sanders this week. What are your thoughts on the Eagles potentially adding Carlos Hyde or another free agent running back like a Lamar Miller, a Devonta Freeman, heck, even a reunion with LaShawn McCoy?
I think Carlos Hyde is the more realistic thing, and the thing with that is people think Carlos Hyde coming in, it's going to be it's Miles Sanders' job. No, I think if they bring somebody in, it's going to take touches away from Miles Sanders. I love Miles Sanders. I think he's a high-end RB2. But right now, his dynasty price is at an RB1, and that's kind of where I went with the sell, is thinking to myself, okay, can his price get any higher than an RB1 price? And I didn't think so, so I sold. Like I said, I own him in a lot of spots. I wasn't happy to sell him because I think he is an electric player. I think he has a very high ceiling if he gets the touches. But just Doug Peterson. That's all I got to say. Doug Peterson, he likes to share the load. Is there anything else you really have to say?
Yeah, I mean, I think we see trends. A lot of people like the Pittsburgh. There's been a lot of Pittsburgh Steelers talk this week about James Conner. Like they typically use one back. The Eagles typically use multiple backs. So Marcus, Carlos Hyde, he came off a 1,000-yard season last year, had some pretty good flashes with the Houston Texans, really kind of revigorating his career because he was kind of dead in the water. He traveled around from Jacksonville to Cleveland to Kansas City, and then he ends up in Houston and has a nice season behind a not great offensive line. So where would this bump Sanders down for you? I think he's probably in that high-end RB2 like Tyler said, but would this create an opportunity in Dynasty to buy Miles Sanders possibly for you?
I mean, I think so, because here's the thing. Even if they do bring in Carlos Hyde, this is not a long-term situation. So I think that's the one thing you can look at as sort of the silver lining in this whole thing. But I sort of agree with Tyler in the sense that, I worry. Like, I want great things for Miles Sanders. I've wanted great things for Miles Sanders since late last year when we started to see him really maybe get a bigger role in that offense. Two things worry me. One, obviously, the Carlos Hyde talk on its face is very concerning, just because I still think Sanders is the primary back there, but Hyde can eat enough into his opportunities that it sort of makes life miserable for everybody there. The other part that worries me is if, and this is a big if these wide receivers in Philadelphia can stay healthy, how does this change things? I mean, you look at what Sanders got last year, but also keep in mind that essentially they were running the four of us out at wide receiver by the end of the year because everybody was hurt.
A big red zone target, 6'4", 220. Throw
hey, I mean, that explains why JJ Arcega-Whiteside never really caught on last year.
He's on all my dynasty teams. Don't remind me.
Hey, look, I waved the flag for him as a deep sleeper last year, and I was willing to double down, but I don't know now. I still believe. I mean, but look, they're expecting Alshon Jeffrey to be a part of things, right? Deshaun Jackson for now is back and healthy. They draft Jalen Reagor. They've got two tight ends in Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert. If everybody stays healthy, and you add Carlos Hyde in there, that worries me a little bit about Miles Sanders. But I will still hold on to the fact that if you're looking dynasty wise, that there are brighter days down the road, just because a lot of those guys I mentioned probably aren't going to be in Philadelphia, maybe beyond this year. Miles Sanders looks like he's going to be there at least for the next few years.
So, Tim, a little bit deeper Eagles talk. I think if they bring in Carlos Hyde, the player that I thought looked great at the end of the season, and you could probably pick him up in a lot of dynasty leagues for absolutely zero cost, was Boston Scott. I think Boston Scott looked really good at the end of the year. So I think if they bring in Hyde, I know I picked up Scott for free, and I was kind of hoping that, like, hey, maybe I can get something out of Boston Scott here, but I think it really sinks him. Would you agree with that, Tim? Are you still, like, holding on to Boston Scott? Because Carlos Hyde, like Marcus said, is probably a temporary option, so there might be still a light at the end of the tunnel for Boston Scott.
There might be a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. I, like you, was picking Boston Scott up off waiver wires towards the end of last season because, they signed him up off the practice squad, took him off the street, brought him in, and just out of necessity, he was seeing the ball, he was seeing the field, and he was doing productive things when he was getting the touches. So, yeah, there's still a little bit of light, just a little bit there for Boston Scott. But let's be honest, if they bring Carlos Hyde in, and I do think that is going to be the move, that he is probably at this point a little more electric than Jordan Howard was, who was keeping Miles Sanders off the field at least to start the season last year. Now, obviously, the second half of last season, Miles showed what he can do given the opportunity. So I don't see Carlos Hyde completely forcing him off the field, but Carlos Hyde is still a little bit more dynamic than Jordan Howard is at this point in their careers. And I think Carlos Hyde will definitely get into Miles Sanders' opportunity shares this season for sure.
Absolutely. So moving on to the next thing we got, it's Tampa Bay is going to run the quotation fingers Bruce Arian offense with a Tom Brady influence per QB coach Clyde Christensen. Marcus, what exactly does that mean to you?
I was going to ask you. I was like, what does that mean exactly? Yeah, I don't know what that means. I mean, other than
a lot of Dare Ungabawale on.
I was gonna say, like, do they throw to the running backs a lot? I mean, if they're involving their running backs in the passing game, I mean, what does that mean for Ronald Jones and Keyshawn Vaughn? I don't know. I know that everybody talked about. I remember several people hitting me up with, well, Bruce Arians doesn't use his tight ends, because I've always believed that even after bringing Gronk in, that there was still a place for OJ Howard, because Gronk is another kind of short-term rental.
Well, he's also a mean blocker too, Gronk.
Yes, no, absolutely.
So, yeah.
But, he's still a short-term situation there, right? I mean, he's a year, maybe two at the most, I think, for Gronk there in Tampa. I still believe there's a chance for OJ Howard. A lot of people hit me with, well, Bruce Arians doesn't use his tight ends. And my response was, yeah, well, Tom Brady does. So take that for what it's worth. 100%. But a Bruce Arians offense with a Tom Brady influence, I mean, is that like what you got your chocolate in my peanut butter, you got your peanut butter on my chocolate? Like, I don't 100% know what that means, other than I'm still all in on Chris Godwin. I'm still trying to figure out which of the two running backs is going to be the best one to have there in Tampa. And I'm still worried about Mike Evans long term. That's kind of how I take away from this Tampa offense right now.
Yeah, I'm really hungry for Reese's right now. That's all I know.
See, I put this one in the notes, Doug, because to me, it sounds like, Leftwich will come up with a game plan, throughout the week. Arians will have like a final say, during the walkthroughs of, hey, let's toss that one out. Let's keep this one in. The plays will get called. Tom Brady will make that at the line of scrimmage read. And if he sees those safeties are going to just blanket Evans and Godwin, then guess what? Gronk, you're going down the seam. We're going to hit you 12, 15 yards, first down, keep the ball moving, and they're going to win games that way. I think it also means that, yes, there will definitely be some running back catches out of the backfield. I think that Dare or a guy that's on my list as a rookie could possibly produce this year might be in line for some catches out of the backfield.
So Under Siege 79, watching on Periscope, shout out to you. He asked, who is the running back to go with in Tampa? My take is I just drafted Keyshawn Vaughn in a league at the 111. I was trying to get Ronald Jones to just wrap up the backfield. I got a slam dunk offer to trade Keyshawn Vaughn, so I ended up trading him so I didn't have to worry about it. I do own Vaughn in a couple other spots, and I was able to get Rojo. So for me, if I'm in a dynasty team and I've got Vaughn, I want to try to trade and get Rojo on the low because I want to try to lock up the backfield. If I don't have either one of those guys, like I'm probably going to avoid it if I can. Tyler, what do you think on that?
I mean, I would go with the person who's being talked up. And it'd probably be Keyshawn Vaughn. I think they're going to use him in the passing game. He profiles as a really good pass catcher. So I would probably go with the person that Bruce Arians actually is touting at the moment. And Keyshawn Vaughn reminds me a lot of Devin Singletary from last year. Somebody who was very underrated coming in, went into a good situation. He runs like Singletary. And, Singletary's nickname is Motor. And I think Vaughn runs with a lot of oomph, a lot of will. Let's say, he doesn't go down the first tackle that easily. So I do like Vaughn there, and I do think he will win out. And let's not forget the offensive line is a ton better, and you got two tremendously good blocking tight ends with OJ Howard and Gronk, like you guys mentioned. So that running game could be a lot better this year.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be one of the more interesting things to keep an eye on. I think the advantage that Ronald Jones might have is, we don't know what OTAs and the preseason is going to look like. So at least he's got a couple years in the system. With running backs, it's not quite as important as some of the other skill positions, but that might give Ronald Jones an edge, at least early in the season. So that's obviously going to be one of the harder things to keep an eye on. So let's keep it on running backs. We've got Jerick McKinnon. He's yet to resume any kind of cutting or lateral movement from his torn ACL in the preseason before the 2019 season. So it's been a while.
This makes me sad.
I know.
I'm sad about this.
So it's been a while. So there's a couple of guys that were UDFAs for the San Francisco 49ers. There was JaMychal Hasty and Salvin Ahmed. If McKinnon's not a go for 2020, so they've got Tevin Coleman. They obviously have Raheem Mostert. They traded Matt Breida to the Dolphins. They still have Jeffrey Wilson Jr. there. If McKinnon's not ready, I know what my answer is on this from Hasty and Ahmed. But Marcus, have you been doing any 49ers backfield research on some of these UDFAs, and either of those guys, especially late in a dynasty rookie draft or even a startup, interest you at all?
I admittedly have not done a deep dive on either of those guys. I know that at least in the short term, it is deep. In the short term, I don't know that I have a lot of excitement about just seeing how Kyle Shanahan used his running backs last year, knowing that it is a Shanahan family trait. My pal Adam Rank, a long time ago, coined the term Shanahanigans about how Mike Shanahan used his running backs, and I think Kyle has sort of inherited that, right? I mean, it's the same way that we spent all of last year trying to figure out, is it Tevin Coleman, is it Matt Breida, and by the end of the year, it was Raheem Mostert. So with all those other guys you mentioned, with Mostert still there, with Coleman still there, with Wilson still there, and let's not forget, I mean, every once in a while, they'll throw the ball to Kyle Juszczyk out of the backfield as well, too. I think that it's a little bit, I don't know that I'm reaching quite that far down the depth chart. Now, injuries happen, and so we could definitely see somebody work in there. I will also say that I drafted Mostert in a startup. This is a startup draft that started before the actual NFL draft, and I drafted Mostert. It was like, I don't know what's going to happen. And then on a couple days into the draft, the Niners trade Matt Breida, which made me feel a lot better. about my pick. So, I think right now for me, I think those three guys are the ones that are going to get most of the work, and anything beyond that, you're really having to hope for either some injury or somebody just to get traded or cut or what have you sometime during the season.
Yeah, and any rookie drafts that have a 5th round, or I just got Jermichael Hasty late in a startup. We had a 25-round startup that Tim and Tyler were both involved in. I think I got Hasty in the 23rd round. He kind of fits what they want to do there. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to take a flyer on a guy that I know he's a UDFA, but we've seen UDFAs hit before. You've got your Matt Breidas, your Austin Ecklers, your Raheem Mosterts. I mean, there's been Philip Lindsay. There's been a handful of running backs that hit. So I was like, why not this kid? Like, his film is pretty good. He didn't get used a ton. But from what I saw, he's a little bit of a different back than what they already have, which I kind of liked. Tyler or Tim, do you have any thoughts on the Hasty versus Ahmed UDFA running backs for the Niners?
All I know is yeah, for me, it's probably neither of them, and it's probably somebody who's not even on the roster.
You might be right about that too. You never know. But the thing with McKinnon, like, just sad because we saw him, in Minnesota look really, really good on the field, and he just hasn't been able to recover, it seems like, from that ACL. I'm actually surprised the Niners didn't cut him because they could have saved a bunch of cap room. So obviously they still believe in Jerick McKinnon and what he can do if healthy. But that's going to be the question with McKinnon. And if you own him, I think the only thing you can do in Dynasty is just hold and pray that he gets on the field and he gets involved, because you can't sell him for anything right now. So I think you just hold him and he burns a roster spot. Hopefully you're in a deeper league and it's not going to cost you a tough decision going forward in the season. So one last news and note here: Chargers OC Shane Steichen, I don't know, says Eckler, Justin Jackson, and Joshua Kelly, my boy, are going to share the load. So I want to know, how are we valuing Eckler going into this year? Do we think he's a low-end RB1 with risk? Is he an RB2? And who gets more touches between Jackson and Kelly? Eckler's been going, from what I've seen in Dynasty startups, towards the end of the 2nd round. And to me, that seems like the iron price that I do not want to pay for Austin Eckler. I know he had an amazing season last year, but they draft Josh Kelly, who I like a lot. Justin Jackson, he's looked good. I know he had a great game against Pittsburgh last year, and then he ended up getting hurt. So Marcus, how are you assessing this Chargers backfield? And how are you valuing Austin Eckler? Like, for instance, you just said you did a startup. Do you remember where Austin Eckler went in that startup?
No, I don't. I think he was a second or 3rd round. Actually, no, he was later than the 2nd round. I know that for a fact, but I don't remember exactly where it was. I think it's funny. I think Eckler's going to be one of those guys where his draft price is going to sort of level off, right? Like, I feel like when we knew Melvin Gordon was leaving, then everybody was hot on Austin Eckler. I think there's always that immediate reaction, right? Especially on fantasy Twitter when something like that happens. And it's generally an overreaction, and we sort of balance ourselves out as time goes along. Because I remember, like, when we realized that Melvin Gordon wasn't coming back, which I know has been happening for a while, I think there was some talk that maybe could Eckler sneak into the 1st round. And I think we sort of threw some cold water on that. Now you're talking about late 2nd round. And I think as we see more from what the Chargers want to do, I think you'll see that number come down a little bit. I still think he does have RB1 potential. My big fear is he is incredibly efficient catching the football in terms of especially yards after the catch and that sort of thing. And you wonder, with more opportunity, can he keep that same efficiency? If he does, then he ends up being a great value and a great steal. I just don't know if he necessarily can if he's getting more opportunity. So I think that's a big concern. I think behind him, though, I think that's going to be a real battle. I like Justin Jackson, but as you mentioned, his injury problems, I think, have been part of the reason that the Chargers went out and got Joshua Kelly. And I think Kelly really can get in there and get on the field this year. But I still believe that Austin Eckler has some RB1 potential. I think he's going to be a big part of what they do, whether it's Tyrod Taylor or Justin Herbert, who starts at the quarterback spot. I think Eckler's still going to be a guy who can probably see in the neighborhood of 200, 215 touches this year.
Yeah, I think that's probably right in the ballpark. I personally, I think Joshua Kelly is going to be that guy with Austin Eckler. I mean, I like Justin Jackson, but that just something about Joshua Kelly that I really, really like. Really productive career at UCLA. I think he's going to carve out a role, and I've been getting him in rookie drafts. Usually anywhere from, I've got him late 3rd, early 4th, and to me, that's great. I targeted Aaron Jones a few years ago in that same ballpark. And that paid off well. So I'm hoping that Joshua Kelly, I know they're totally different types of players, but I'm hoping to get that return on investment with Joshua Kelly, similar how I got Aaron Jones as potential. So Tim or Tyler, any thoughts on the Chargers backfield before we move on here?
Yeah. The thing that worries me is Justin Herbert and Tyrod Taylor. What is their tendency going to be? We all know Phillip Rivers. He likes to check down to the running back. He did a lot with Melvin Gordon. He did a lot with Eckler. My thinking is that Mike Williams actually gets a bump up because Herbert, who will probably come in sooner than later, he likes to throw downfield. He's got a big arm, and Mike Williams fits that. I think a lot of the players around, except for probably Hunter Henry, I think Keenan Allen takes a little hit with the quarterback change, but I think Mike Williams is probably the biggest bump in. And Eckler, I think, is going to be fine. He'll be a high-end RB2, low-end RB1 still with just the pure volume.
See, I don't think Tyrod's going to lose that job. I think Tyrod's going to be the starter, and I think you're going to see a really good season from Hunter Henry. If we remember just a few years ago, Tyrod Taylor made Charles Clay a tight end 1. And last time I checked, Hunter Henry is a lot better than Charles Clay. So I think the wheels are up on Hunter Henry this year to finally produce where he's getting drafted, because Hunter Henry seems like the guy that gets drafted at like tight end 5 every year, and he's never paid off at that.
He's never healthy. He's never healthy. No, I mean,
and I understand that, but I think this is finally the year where Hunter Henry, he just got franchise tagged. He's going into free agency next year, potentially. I think Henry could have a monster season, because I think Tyrod Taylor is a good starting quarterback. And I think Herbert is just going to have to wait. I think unless that team tanks. Now, with that defense, I don't see the Chargers.
Oh, God, that defense is so good.
I don't see them tanking. So I think Tyrod can come in there, be a game manager, use the tools around him, and then add. I mean, he averages 40 yards rushing per game, which is like an extra passing touchdown, like when he was with Buffalo. So I like Tyrod Taylor a lot there, and I think that means a lot for Hunter Henry. So we're going to get a quick.
It's funny, real quick though. I know you talk about. I mean, you talked about this with some of the other rookies. The quarterback spot, it's going to be hard on a lot of these guys not having OTAs, not having mini camps. Yeah. I mean, and you mentioned how at running back, excuse me, that learning curve's a little bit shorter. At the quarterback spot, it is a lot to try to take in, even if you have a full off season to work. So I think that works very much in Tyrod's favor this year.
Yeah. Yeah. And at least he had a year on the team under his belt, and, building that rapport with the guys when it's practice. I mean, a rookie coming in to try to do that. That's what gives me a little bit of pause on Joe Burrow being, super fantasy relevant in his rookie year, because he's got a lot of work to do to build that rapport with the guys that he's never thrown a pass to. So there is something to be said for that. So we're going to get a quick word from our sponsor and then talk a little bit more Dynasty. So do you think you are smarter than an NFL GM? I know some of us here do. I mean, there's some pretty dumb NFL GMs out there. I'm looking at you, Green Bay Packers. Do you think you are the best at fantasy football? I think we all think that. We're pretty good. We won some ships. Tyler's got a belt. He's got a beautiful thing that he got from TrophySmack.com. I think he used code DHHRing as well. Well, now you have a chance to prove it. Dynasty Owner is the only patented fantasy sports game using actual NFL salaries and contracts. You manage your team from every single level, owner to general manager to coach. Dynasty Owner is for the smart and elite fantasy football player. There's no offseason in Dynasty Owner. The rookie draft matters, free agency matters, and every single contract matters. So come do a startup in 2020 using actual NFL players, contracts, and salaries. Then improve your team each year with a 3-round rookie draft and by trading players and draft picks. You can win weekly prizes, seasonal prizes, and compete in the chase for the ring. The mobile app is in development, but it should be, if it's not already up, it should be very, very soon. So keep an eye out for that.
Up.
It is up.
I have
it's official.
I have it.
Yes.
It's
all
nice.
Right, so it's up on iOS and it's up on Android, because they are rookie drafts that are going to start taking place. So keep your eyes peeled. Download that Dynasty Owner app today. You can also do mock drafts. They're open now on desktop and mobile browsers. And to learn more, and you can mock draft for free, go to www.dynastyowner.com. So Tyler, before we move on, give me your thoughts on the app. I haven't downloaded it yet. I need to.
Clean, smooth, works great. I mean, it's
That's
nice.
What she said.
I don't remember the last time my wife has actually said that to me, but
it's usually the clean part. No, I'm just kidding. I kid. I love you, Tyler. You know that. So it's got a clean look, easy to use. Those are all the things that I want to hear out of an app. I want it to be simple. I want it to be straightforward. I want it to have a nice presentation. Don't give me sub menus left and right. I don't want to look for stuff. Make it easy. All right, so Yes. Yeah, the big 4-2. Whew, eye control. So the first thing I want to talk about, we'll get some dynasty thoughts with Marcus after. But the first thing I want to talk about is the rookies that think we can make an impact in 2020. So Marcus, I'm going to give the floor to you, and everyone else can kind of chime in. But I'm going to give you the stage. Here's the mic. Rookies that can impact in 2020, and go.
Well, we all wanted the big couple of running backs to go out and get in and land in good spots. I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire landed in a great spot. How can you go to Kansas City and have it not be a great spot, right? And I had sort of been lobbying for the Chiefs to take one of those top running backs with their last pick in the first round. And so I think we were all kind of dancing a jig when they take CEH and put him in there. Now, I'm very curious to see how this split goes between he and Damian Williams. There's been talk that Williams will remain the starter and Edwards-Helaire will have to sort of work his way in there. So that'll be sort of interesting. Very disappointed where Jonathan Taylor and DeAndre Swift landed, just because there are other guys there who are still talented guys. I mean, I still like Marlon Mack, right? And I think they're going to battle to get on the field and get those opportunities. So I was sort of frustrated with that. Same with Swift. I mean, I went heavy on Kerryon Johnson last year, got burned by it because he didn't stay healthy. But I still like him. I still like his talent. And so to see DeAndre Swift land there was a little bit frustrating as well. I think,
but he's got a video on Twitter where he looks blazing fast. So stock up, right?
I mean, if on Twitter, it's got to be for real, right? Like,
right? It's got to be the hype's got to be for real, man. He moves his feet real fast.
My favorite part about that is Kerryon replying to it with a picture of his girl on the beach and saying, "Well, just because I don't post videos of it doesn't mean I'm not working out." It's like, I mean.
Which
who's winning?
I kind of thought that was funny.
Yeah, me too.
It was a good flex. It was a good flex.
Me too, because who's winning? Like,
right.
Swift is working out with Stafford, but Kerryon is on the beach.
Like I thought that was kind of funny, right?
Yeah, me too.
I will say that I think it's the wide receivers that I expect to make more of an impact in their first year. Justin Jefferson kind of jumps to the top of the list just because he walks into a situation where Stephon Diggs is not there anymore, right? And there aren't a lot of guys, when you look at that Minnesota roster, there aren't a lot of guys that wow me in terms of
Sharp. Come on.
Every year, Tajay Sharp catches a touchdown, and I'm reminded that Tajay Sharp is still in the league.
I remember the hype for him as a sleeper in drafts coming out.
Because I think it was Tajay Sharp, right? They had like a really great week at the Senior Bowl, I think it was, and then suddenly everybody was like, "Oh, let's keep an eye on this guy."
This kid out of UMass.
Yeah, and it just never materialized. So I mean, look, Tajay Sharp, BC Johnson, whatever. I think Justin Jefferson can come in there and start to absorb a lot of targets right away. I think he's in a good situation. Again, I sort of liked what Jalen Reagor could possibly do until everybody in Philadelphia decided they were just going to come back and hang out and still be a part of things. So I don't really know about that. And same thing with some of the top receivers that I said with the running back. CeeDee Lamb, great wide receiver, lands in a very crowded situation there in Dallas. Amari Cooper's still there. Michael Gallup, I've been saying, he's got to have middle child syndrome, right? Because everybody's talking about Amari Cooper, everybody's talking about CeeDee Lamb. Meanwhile, Michael Gallup is just like Jan Brady. Like, what's going on? Like, how come nobody's paying attention to me?
What about me? He's all mopey,
right?
No one cares about me anymore. I had 1,000 yards last year.
Right. I totally felt that way. So that was sort of frustrating. I think Jerry Jeudy's got a decent situation there in Denver. I think the big winner in Denver was Drew Lock more than anything, but I think Jerry Jeudy can get some opportunities there. Henry Ruggs seems like a weird fit in Las Vegas. I have to pause so I don't say Oakland. In Las Vegas, because here it is, this guy with this blazing speed with two quarterbacks in Derek Carr and Marcus Mariota who just don't throw the ball deep.
Do you think both their arm strengths combined, do you think they equal, I don't know, let's say Kirk Cousins?
You can probably lump in Nathan Peterman as the QB3 too, and it still wouldn't
no
Kirk Cousins.
Still wouldn't matter.
My powers combined.
Derek Carr can throw it deep. Derek Carr can throw it deep. He just chooses not to. He's just not mentally in his.
Because the mascara gets in his eyes. We've talked about that before.
He doesn't have that DGAF mentality to throw it deep and let it fly.
He does not.
It's the mascara, man.
But neither does Marcus Mariota, which is sort of
Yep.
weird that's who they brought in to challenge Carr. It's like, well, you kind of got Derek Carr, but faster. Like that was sort of it. Like what happened? So that sort of frustrates me with Ruggs. So like I said,
They should have signed Jameis.
Yeah,
they should have. That would have been fun.
Right?
I mean, if
Talk about
only to
DK.
watch John Gruden just be super red-faced on the sidelines every time Jameis throws one of those YOLO balls that gets picked off.
But he got LASIK, Marcus. He won't throw picks anymore.
Oh, that's right. Now he can see.
Good. He can drive a car. He's fine.
Which, if I'm the state of Florida, I'm very concerned about hearing that, right? Like, we gave this man a driver's license.
Wait. This is the state of Florida where the weirdest things in the United States happen. They would just, it's like another day. Like, oh, James, whatever.
Yeah.
James can't see, whatever. Psh, whatever. Eh.
We just had an alligator eat a lady, whatever.
Yeah, they're handing out driver's license to like 14, 13-year-olds right now
I mean,
as they're
like,
going on the beach.
I know. I think Atlanta basically said like they're not doing driver's tests right now. Like basically, if your parents say it's cool for you to drive, then like you can drive now.
Okay.
Which hey, what could go wrong? But like I said, I do think right now Justin Jefferson's sort of top of my list in terms of guys who can come and make an impact because I think he's one of the few guys that walked into a situation with a decent quarterback in a good offense where there is opportunity for him to go out and make plays. And I think when you look at this rookie draft class, it's hard to kind of pick those spots. You have a lot of talented guys who ended up in situations where they're going to have to compete to get opportunities. There just aren't a lot of immediate great fits that I saw coming out of this draft this year.
Yeah, Tyler, what are your thoughts on potential impact rookies out of this draft?
Oh, you know my feelings about Jefferson. He is actually my wide receiver one coming out. Situation and talent and just the fit in the offense is perfect. I do like BC Johnson. I do think he could eat into the targets. I think up here in Minnesota, they do like him. And
I think Irv Smith's going to eat into those targets.
But see, Irv Smith is in the middle of the field, and I think Jefferson's going to play a lot of slot. Thielen plays a lot of slot. I think the middle of the field is pretty much taken by 8 people now for targets.
They're just going to run all their routes in the middle.
Yeah, they're just going to run. They're going to squeeze formation that. They're going to put everybody in. Yeah, there's a lot of targets that are in the middle of the field. I don't know who's going to play on the outside. I think Thielen will be pushed more to the outside. Jefferson can play on the outside. He's got the athleticism. So, yeah, I do like that fit. CeeDee Lamb, I think he could be the most talented receiver in Dallas. And Cooper's fine. I'm not the biggest Cooper guy, so that could be it. But I think CeeDee Lamb in a couple years could just be dominant with Dak. And then you guys all know I like Judy. I do like the fit because he fits perfect with Sutton. I don't think he's going to have a crazy high ceiling, but I think he has a decently safe floor. He's going to get his targets. And then with Ruggs, I just think with the arm on those quarterbacks being not great, I do think he's going to get a lot of screens. They're going to use him in unique ways. They're going to try to get him the ball early, quickly, and just let him do his thing. So I actually do like Ruggs as a sleeper in redraft. I don't know, 11th round, probably later. You could probably get Ruggs. Marcus,
probably,
that sound about right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I will say that if you're looking for, especially a dynasty sleeper, maybe even deep sleeper, however you want to categorize him, Bryan Edwards.
Yes.
Is a
I think in a
really
couple years
interesting
he's
fit.
going to be the receiver one there.
He's going in the mid to late second round in rookie drafts right now.
Yeah,
So he's in that same ballpark as Ayuk and Shenault. Typically, they usually they're all kind of lumped in together. And that's one name that I wanted to bring up was Laviska Shenault. Goes to Jacksonville where, they have DJ Chark, but they've got a bunch of underachievers in D.D. Westbrook, and they've got Keelan Cole there still. Marquise Lee's out of the picture. Now he's on my Patriots. Woo, who cares? But I think Shenault, in his unique skill set, especially paired with what Gardner Minshew can do, I think Shenault could be a sneaky impact rookie right in year one. He can do a lot of different things. Now, he obviously disappointed at the combine. He had an injury. He ran a 4.5. If you watch the tape with Laviska Shenault, you know that he's faster than that. Really strong hands. Now, he can clean up his route running a little bit. But I think Shenault could be in line for a bunch of targets in his rookie year. So I think that he's, being a little slept on when it comes to even rookie drafts. I just drafted him tonight. I traded up to get the 208, and I drafted him there. And I love that value for Laviska Shenault. This was a player going into this year, and is pretty much a universal first rounder. And then he obviously struggles at the combine. Doesn't have a great year at Colorado, but the talent is definitely there. And I like the landing spot with Jacksonville. It's not the sexiest offense, but you know what? Like, it's just him and Chark, in my opinion, in that passing game, and Tyler Eifert at tight end. Nobody cares about him. And maybe Josh Oliver eventually. So that's my guy that we haven't talked about yet. Tim, you have anybody else in mind here for year one impact rookies?
Well, I wanted to, I guess at this point, triple down on Justin Jefferson. I mean, Diggs had 63 catches last year. That's vacated now, available. I don't see Justin Jefferson coming in and automatically getting 63 catches, 1,100 yards, and 6 touchdowns. But somewhere around, 50 catches, 850, sprinkle in 4 to 5 touchdowns. I think that would be a very good rookie season for Justin Jefferson. I think fantasy owners would love that out of a rookie. I also had Shenault on my list. The Jags desperately need a playmaker. And like you said, with Minshew there, his style of play, and they didn't really do a ton to address that offensive line, which was their biggest issue last year, in my opinion. There's still going to be plenty of broken plays. And if that defense forgets to, hey, we need to, watch that guy going down the sideline, Minshew's going to find him for some deep balls, and those could be some big plays for sure. I had Jalen Reagor on my list in case Philly repeats what they did last year. They start trotting out that medical unit, as Marcus said, the 4 of us going out there. Now they have Jalen Reagor. There were a ton of targets last year that a kid like Jalen Reagor could have just chewed up and taken. So if those guys all can't stay on the field, Jalen Reagor could be in line for a ton of touches. As far as the running backs go, I think the Cam Akers down there in Los Angeles, I don't see an alpha type running back in that backfield right now. They don't have that guy that you can say that's our running back. The other LA team we discussed earlier, at this point, it looks like it's Eckler, but I wouldn't call him an alpha either. So I think both of the LA teams are kind of looking for that alpha. I think Akers could definitely step in and possibly be that alpha running back as early as like week 2, 3. If with this limited all season, it's going to take these rookies a couple weeks to really start to show these teams what they can do. So if he has a couple limited touches the first 2 weeks and they're like, hey, we need to get this kid, let's give him 12, 15 touches in week 3, we could really start to see Cam Akers take off. And then the last one on my list was Michael Pittman. Lands in Indianapolis. All they've done is just talk him up. They absolutely love Michael Pittman there. And when I was watching his tape, he actually reminded me of a guy that his current quarterback used to throw to a lot, and that's Vincent Jackson. I think that Phillip Rivers is going to really like the big body that Michael Pittman offers. I think he is not that guy he's not the fastest guy. He's not the strongest guy. He doesn't jump the highest, but he's very, very good at all of those things. He's got a very good catch radius, strong hands. He can high point the ball. He can run very good routes. I think that, again, limited off season, once Pittman and Rivers begin to work together a little bit, give it a couple weeks. Rivers, I think, will really like Pittman and will start to look his way a few weeks into the season. I think Pittman could definitely pay off from some fantasy owners this season. And that's a guy you're getting in the second round. He's not part of this big 3 or 4 receiver group, that most people have. So you can get him in that mid to late second sometimes, and that's great value in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I like Pittman. I can't believe I left him out. I mean, I'm a USC guy, so the fact that I forgot to mention him, that's super my bad. But I do like his spot. The other guy that is like, it's a mixed bag, right? Like Denzel Mims is in a situation where there's a lot of opportunity, but Adam Gase, like that's all I have to say about that. Adam Gase, right? Like you look at that group that I called them the Adam Gase expats last year, right? All those guys, Kenyon Drake, Devontae Parker, who am I missing? Ryan Tannehill, like all these guys who got away from Adam Gase and flourished in other situations. I've been lobbying for them to trade Le'Veon Bell because I want him to come back into our lives again. So like Denzel Mims, I think has a great potential opportunity there, but until the offensive play caller shows us he can do anything, I just can't be excited about it.
Now, going back to Brian Edwards, I compare it to Allen Robin's situation. Back then, they brought in Marquise Lee, and then they drafted Allen Robinson right after, and Brian Edwards got drafted after Ruggs. I know it was rounds later, but he reminds me a lot of Allen Robinson. Could you kind of see that situation happen where Edwards becomes the one? He's been a hot topic in Dynasty.
I think so. I mean, it's definitely a couple years down the road, but I definitely see a situation where he can. I mean, Ruggs obviously is the headliner there, but I just think Edwards is smooth in a lot of different positions, a lot of different facets, and I think he will fit nicely in that offense. I mean, a lot of it obviously also depends on who the quarterback is down the road, because this is likely the last hurrah for Derek Carr unless something really special happens, and I don't think Mariota's the future there either. So we'll see how that works out. But I think Edwards has a skill set that could really, help him force his way to the top of the depth chart.
Yeah, I do have one tight end. I know it was not a great tight end class, needless to say, and especially like Cole Kmet's, he's behind Jimmy Graham. You had Adam Troutman, he's behind Jared Cook. So they're really not going to contribute much in their first year. But the New England Patriots, they got Ryan Izzo and Matt Lacoste, and they drafted Devin Asiasi, who was a name that not a lot of people were talking about pre-draft process, in fantasy circles for tight ends. I think he could step in and actually contribute in his rookie year, which isn't something typically tight ends do. But I think that the targets should be there. And, looking at his athletic profile and watching some tape on him, and I kind of like what I saw, and they spent a 3rd round pick on him. So that's a guy that I think could make, to be a tight end 1 in fantasy. I mean, the tail end tight end 1s, you need 30 yards receiving and a touchdown a game. That's it. To be a tight end 1. So why can't he be that guy? Second year quarterback with Stidham. It looks like they're going to roll with him. Like, they rely on their tight ends, these young quarterbacks. And, he's got Edelman, which is like, a really tiny tight end. But I think Asiasi could be an interesting play. So if you're picking them up in rookie drafts, typically in the 4th round, especially in tight end premium formats, I think that you might be able to get him to contribute and have some usable weeks for you here in year 1. Outside of that, I don't want to really have too much to do with any tight ends in year 1. It's just not a very good class. Looking forward to the 2021 tight end class, which is going to be a really good one. So, Marcus, you said that you just did a Dynasty startup, right?
Yes.
Would you be able to so I have a couple questions. So my first question is, did you go into the startup with any particular strategy in mind, or you just kind of let it be water and you flow as you go? And give us a little bit of a recap on like where your draft position was, and kind of walk us through the team that you drafted. And maybe some surprises along the way, from a value where a guy might have fell, where you might have come up and got a guy that you liked. Just kind of walk us through that.
Yeah, I ended up drafting from the 3rd spot, and I try not to go into any particular draft with like a set strategy, because I feel like then you sort of get trapped in your thinking and maybe end up making some moves that you don't particularly care for. So I like the squad I came up with. I mean, it's a super flex league, so the quarterback's obviously going a little bit earlier than they normally would. I ended up going Russell Wilson in 1 quarterback spot. So my first pick was Saquon. At the 3rd spot, I got Saquon at number 3. I felt okay about that. I went very, very heavy on wide receivers. Like I took some shots at guys. Like I'm sort of doubling down on Christian Kirk again this year after not maybe hitting as much as I wanted to with him last year. Still trying to believe in Keenan Allen because I think that whoever the quarterback is, whether it's Taylor or it's Herbert, they hopefully are smart enough to understand that Allen is still a playmaker. I would like for him to have some more touchdown upside. That hasn't really happened in his career, but I think there's something there. I mentioned I got Raheem Mostert late in that draft, which made me feel a lot better after Matt Breida got traded away. But again, I took some shots at wide receivers. I mean, I don't love the fact in retrospect that I have 3 Cardinals wideouts, because I have Christian Kirk, but I also late in that draft got Andy Isabella and Keyshawn Johnson, who I really like. I just want him to get some opportunities, which I don't know if it's going to happen, but we'll see.
Remember Hakeem Butler?
I remember.
Hey, Cliff does. He was talking him up just a little bit ago.
Yeah. It's funny because I didn't go too heavy on rookies. I mean, I've got Justin Jefferson at 1 rookie spot. I took Darrington Evans. I only had the way we did it. I only ended up with 2 picks in the rookie. I went very heavy sort of on younger players, current players, but not so much rookies. But I took Darrington Evans because I just have this sneaking feeling that the Titans aren't going to want to double down on Derrick Henry when it comes to franchise tags, and the current climate suggests that nobody pays running backs. So I wonder what Evans' future is, whether or not he's going to get some opportunities down the road there in Tennessee.
He's my second most owned rookie behind Herbert. So I love Evans. I think he's going to get an opportunity.
Yeah, I sort of like what especially because Derrick Henry doesn't even catch the football either. So Evans hopefully can maybe catch the football out of the backfield a little bit. I did swing a post-draft trade to get Daniel Jones, who I really love this year. I think he's got a whole lot of upside in that offense.
What'd you have to give up to get him?
I ended up giving up what would have been a different rookie pick. It would have been I think a late second round rookie pick to get Daniel Jones.
That's a good deal.
Yeah. So I'm very happy with that. I try and look at the rest. Got Mark Ingram. I did go Cortland Sutton as one of my other wide receivers there too, because I think obviously I think this Denver offense is going to step forward again this year. So yeah, on the whole, I like kind of where this is. I think I need some, definitely need some tight end help.
Don't we all?
On this roster? I got Kelsey, which is nice, but I think behind him is sort of where it gets a little. I'm hoping Blake Jarwin turns in to be the player that we hope he can be. I took a dart throw at CJ Uzama just because at least once a year he has one of those games where you're like, hey, this guy might be a thing.
Don't forget about Drew Sample over there.
Yeah, right. So like I said, my frontline tight end, obviously I'm feeling great with Kelsey. Beyond that, I'm sort of hoping that some of these guys sort of develop. But I did go very heavy, like I said, on wide receivers. Just knowing that, with teams throwing the ball so much, running so many wide receivers out there, and the position being so deep, that you figure it's being a volume shooter, right? You take a whole lot of wide receivers and hopefully one of these guys hits for you in a big way.
Yeah, we just did the three of us just did a Dynasty startup that we just completed, a 25 rounder super flex. I had the 101. I ended up taking Christian McCaffrey. I love CMC. I feel like you couldn't go wrong with Barkley, CMC, even Mahomes. It's a super flex league. I went CMC, and I had a build. Like, I didn't go in with any particular strategy, but the way it was kind of happening was quarterbacks were flying off the board, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to fade quarterback a bit and do it a little differently than I normally do. So I took Tua was my first quarterback in the third round, and then I took Jameis in round 11, Cam in round 12, and a couple other guys late, and that was it. I was like, you know what? Like, I'm building a really young team, and I'm going to see what I can do with it and have some fun. So I've got Jonathan Taylor with McCaffrey. I've got Akers, McLaurin, Metcalf, just a lot of really young players, either first or second year guys. And I was like, this could be a team that could be a lot of fun in a couple of years. So a different strategy for me. Typically, I'm in win now mode, but I saw the opportunity to get some young players with a lot of upside. Tyler, what did you think about?
Very weird. It was very weird seeing you go that route because I've been in a lot of leagues with Doug and see like every time he'd hit the pick, I'm like, wait, no, Doug's hacked. Somebody hacked Doug. I should go check on him, see if he's okay because this is not his team. Usually that's me. Usually I'm the youth heavy, build. But man, that was weird. And with me, I started the quarterback run and Superflex. I like to have the two good quarterbacks. Tim hates me for it because I loved getting those two quarterbacks. I got Kyler and Dak as my two quarterbacks, and I could rest easy the rest of the draft. I could just go smooth. I actually don't have a backup. That's the problem. I forgot to get a backup quarterback.
I'll trade you. I got Jacob Eason late. I know you like him. I'll trade him.
Oh man, like I just looked at it the other day and I sat there. I'm like, okay, on bye weeks, I can't start a quarterback. I'm screwed because I have nobody.
When I started seeing Tom Brady and Breeze go in the fourth round, I was like, I'm out on quarterbacks. Like in a dynasty league, like to see that, I'm like, you know what? I'm fading quarterback and I'm just going to load up on young talent. And then I threw the darts at Winston and Newton and like, hey, maybe Winston's the starter in New Orleans next year. Maybe Newton gets a job. Immediate value bumps out of those guys in a super flex league. So I was like, that's the play. And then I have Tua this year. I'll tank and I'll get a quarterback next year in the rookie draft.
I'm a Falcons fan, and the way New Orleans just keep rolling over us, I honestly can just see without skipping a beat, Jameis come in and he's an all-pro, just stud. The LASIK work, the losing the weight, the worth ethic now, just everything pans out for the Saints. Michael Thomas keeps dominating. They get a second receiver. Alvin Kamara is one of the best. It's a nightmare.
I can hear the frustration in your voice right now.
It's bad. And then Tom Brady decides to come to the NFC South, and it doesn't make it better. So, he already destroyed us in the Super Bowl. Now he's coming to haunt our dreams 2 times a year.
Wait, he beat you guys in the Super Bowl? This is the first I'm hearing of this. Did something happen in the Super Bowl?
Don't do that.
I saw them replay it on TV like a lot lately.
That was good trolling. Good job. But no, I was very shocked by your team, Doug. And then with me, I went Kenyon Drake at running back, and then I traded for DeAndre Swift because even though everybody's on Taylor, I think DeAndre Swift is going to be an Alvin Kamara type his rookie year, just catching balls out of the backfield. I think if Stafford stays healthy, Stafford loves throwing to backs more than we even think. And what was mentioned on Twitter today, I forgot who said it, like Bo Scarborough came in and had running back 2 weeks. And let's not forget that.
Don't forget about Wes Hills too.
Yeah, Wes Hills.
He actually started late in the season, was like kind of sort of decent.
We have somebody taking over for Marcus.
I have my assistant GM is stepping in here, and he very much wants to grab the microphone, so I have to
trade me all your rookie picks, assistant GM. I'll take them. I've got a lollipop in whatever flavor you would like, and I will take your rookie picks.
He's a little young for lollipops, Doug. Come on now, choking hazards.
He only has like 4 teeth, so I don't know how that's going to work out for him.
Yeah, that's a good point. I have children. I should know this. Whatever. I've got some of those rice husks. You can give them those.
Nice.
And some puffs. I'll throw some puffs at him.
If you throw him some Cheerios, he might give you anything you want.
Yeah, the 101 nice. Puffs or Cheerios.
Nice, Tim. How did you like your team in that league? You were right. You were picking right in front of me and behind me. We were going back.
Yeah,
and forth.
You had the 101. I had the 102. In retrospect, I ended up taking Barkley at the 102. In retrospect, knowing that Tyler was in this league and it was super flex, I should have known the run was going to come. I should have taken Patrick Mahomes at 2. I decided to take Barkley, and then of course, 14 teams up and back. 10, 12 quarterbacks are already gone before it gets back to me.
Yeah, you're welcome.
There are 213, so I had to snag a quarterback at that point. It was quick to figure out what Doug was doing. So it made, you have that turn, but there's that guy between you. So you're
that was my favorite part of the draft was your guys' turn. Tim drafts, Doug gets 2, Tim picks again. Oh, I loved it.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, okay, I have these 2 or 3 guys that I really like. Okay, I take this guy now. Who do I think can come back to me? And I would always take my younger guy first because I'm like, there's a better chance Doug's going to take this guy if I don't take him now because the other guy I want is in his 4th or 5th season in the league. So
yeah, I had no interest in those guys. I was just like, let's go young. Youth movement.
It was figuring out what the strategy was of the guys drafting around me. Doug, it was very easy to figure you out very quickly, and then just adjusting my draft accordingly. So
yeah, and that's what you got to do, Doug. We're in UDPL together in our rookie draft. There's an Ohio-born and raised big fan of Ohio State who drafted at 107. I had picks 105 and 106. He was drafted. I had 105, 107. 3 running backs on the board: Dobbins, Akers, and Swift. And since I knew he was an Ohio State fan and I liked Swift better than all of them, I decided to go with my second best running back after Swift with Akers, knowing that he's going to take Dobbins. And then I got my guy Swift after. So like knowing who you're drafting with helps. And that's huge with strategy. And Marcus, in Superflex, what is your strategy for quarterbacks? Because Superflex is the new hot thing. You told us that you got Daniel Jones for what I think is a steal. Like I think you, I'm pretty sure you're with Lance Dunbar in the bank robbery with that type of trade. But what's your strategy?
I mean, you do have to get quarterbacks earlier. I still don't necessarily love, look. I mean, I get, going after and getting Mahomes or Lamar Jackson in the first couple of rounds. If I can wait a couple of rounds and still get a guy, that's nice. But it does mean you do have to go. One, you have to get a second quarterback, which, in a redraft league, I'm not likely to do. But in a super flex league, I think you almost are forced to take a second quarterback. And if not, then you really do have to, get a couple of elite guys at another position so you can fill that slot. So it does force me to sort of change that part of my strategy a little bit more. Whereas, in a redraft league, I would tend to wait until the double-digit rounds, maybe before I draft a quarterback. Here, I'm probably looking more in like the 4th or 5th round before I get my first quarterback.
See, yeah, that's a struggle. That's a struggle in Superflex leagues. I always forget that you can start somebody other than a quarterback in that slot. Like, there's many times. We have a friend, Gabe Gearing, who won or got second place in the open bar, the bar tab league, Doug. He had one quarterback that whole year.
Yeah.
In a super flex league. And he was dominant through the whole entire season. And I like I just said, I'm thinking to myself, okay, I got 2 quarterbacks. I need to start bye weeks. You can also put in a running back who gets 16, 17 points in a week, and you'll be just fine. So yeah, I keep forgetting about that, and I have to keep reminding.
That's the thing. Where if you're talking about like your second quarterback being a low end quarterback, right? If your second quarterback is say Mitch Trubisky,
he can get you. Why would you think about starting
easily? Right? Yeah. Why would you just put in another wide receiver, or running back, or somebody who can get you a requisite number of points?
You already have one. Trubisky's a tight end, isn't he?
Next, you're going to tell me you want to flex Taysom Hill.
Oh god!
No, he's going to have his own spot next year. It's going to be the TH. It's going to be right next to the tight end, just Taysom Hill position.
I dare people to start Taysom Hill against. Like, enjoy those 4 points a week that you're getting out of Taysom Hill. Please start Taysom Hill.
And then that one random week where he has 2 touchdowns, and you're like,
that would actually be against.
Yeah, that's when they start him against you, and you're like,
right.
Yeah,
and you're like, wow, he won because he started Taysom Hill. Awesome.
The worst part is going to be they're going to think they're the best. Like they're going to be like, oh, I started Taysom Hill. Look at me.
Yeah,
right. Yeah. Go ahead and do it next week,
and enjoy those 2.5 points next week.
Yeah, I think our draft, Tyler and Tim, was a good preview for what the Scott Fishbowl draft's going to look like when it comes to quarterbacks. So we know that Scott Fishbowl is coming up in the summer. He's going to be having some information out on that soon. I love the Scott Fishbowl. It's one of my favorite events in fantasy every single year. Marcus, you played in Scott Fishbowl, correct?
I have played in Scott Fishbowl. I drafted Scott Fishbowl, and admittedly, my team, for any number of reasons, falls apart in Scott Fishbowl.
Every year, all my quarterbacks get hurt.
2 years ago, I drafted Le'Veon Bell, thinking he's going to come back, he's going to play. And then this past season, it was before the news that Melvin Gordon was going to begin his holdout. Drafted Melvin Gordon. Within 48 hours, he announced he was going to hold out. So 2 straight years, my first-round pick holds out.
So I'm going to keep an eye. I'm going to keep an eye on your first round pick this year.
Yeah. It's going to be Joe Mixon or Dalvin Cook this year, is what you're saying.
Avoid that person.
Oh dear God! Don't put that.
I'm drafting.
Don't you put that evil on me?
First round. Here we go.
Yeah, I lost Cam Newton this year in Scott Fishbowl, but I ended up recovering, and I finished pretty strong. So I
had Andrew Luck, so screw y'all.
There's always
you didn't have any luck at all.
There's a point like where things are falling apart, and I'm always tempted to go and pick up one of those just Easter egg names in there off the waiver wire. Like, let me just, everything's bad. Let me just go pick up Uncle Rico and see what he can do for me this week.
Yeah,
he completes the deep passes over the mountains.
Hey man, throw the ball a quarter mile.
Yeah, I love those fun names. They're really, really cool. So that's going to wrap us up this week. It was good to chop it up with you, Marcus, about some Dynasty fantasy football.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell us what you. Oh, go ahead, Tim.
Hold on, Marcus. Do you still have the Atari?
I do. It
okay.
I actually just put it I just put it back in storage. It's one of those things where I break it out and I'm like, hey, this will be really fun. Like I'll have a few beers, but hey, it's fun to play Atari. And then after 10 minutes I realize that the fascination has kind of worn off. But I do still have it. It still works. I got about 25-30 games for it too.
What's your favorite Atari game?
My favorite Atari game is a game called Turmoil, which I don't think ever got a whole lot of run. It is what passes for a first-person shooter, or
back in the
on the Atari 2600, right? Like it's just a spaceship game where you're shooting random monsters or something like that. Like all Atari games, each successive level gets faster and faster until you get to a point where it's just not humanly possible to compete.
Yeah. I was a big Centipede fan for the well-known
Oh, yeah.
games, and then Sub Hunt was a game that I played as a kid that isn't very well known. That was a lot of fun. That I was actually pretty good at.
So I will say this: we're talking Atari, and in the age of quarantine, when we're all digging around on Netflix, I believe it's called Game Over, and it is the story of the ET video game and how the rumor is it basically sunk the Atari company, because basically a guy found out, at least heard a rumor, that there were a whole bunch of ET games buried in a landfill somewhere in like New Mexico. So he was like on a hunt to try and find them, and he tells the story of Atari and the ET video game and how it happened. It's an interesting documentary. So like I said, we all got time now. So if you just want to dig around on Netflix, it's called Game Over. Go find it.
That game was so bad, so overproduced. It was
terrible. It's terrible. But then when you hear the constraints under which they made it, you sort of understand how it ended up the way it did.
Yeah, they had to rush it out to market.
They had a much like incredibly shortened timeline because they wanted to get it out, and along with the movie in time for Christmas. And so a thing that normally takes, like a year, I think they did it in like 6 weeks or something.
Holy cow, 6 weeks.
It was something really ridiculous, like some ridiculously short timeline, that they had to work with.
Yeah, and it showed. So Marcus, thank you for coming on. Let us know where we can find you, what you're working on, like all that good stuff.
Yeah, we still do our podcast, the NFL Fantasy Football Podcast, a couple times a week, Tuesday, Thursday. You can find that, all the local usual suspects, Stitcher, Spotify, iTunes, all that kind of stuff. So you can find it there. I'm on Twitter at Marcus G, MarCasG, so you can find me there. And we're getting ready to actually the NFL fantasy game is open now for everybody who wants to sign up and reestablish your leagues. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, mock drafts, I may be talking out of school here, but I believe mock drafts open on our site tomorrow on Monday. So you can go to NFL.com and you can start mock drafting there. So in fact, I may during the week just throw out some mock draft links for anybody who is on Twitter at the time and wants to jump in. But that's kind of it. In the meantime, we're just cruising along, just waiting like the rest of you guys to see what July, August, and September bring for us in terms of actual football.
Yes,
absolutely. That revamped app you guys put out last year is, no offense, but the NFL fantasy app had kind of fallen behind.
Look, you're preaching to the choir here. Okay.
and last year I heard they had revamped it and put it out, and it had been a few years since I had played, so I decided, hey, I just want to see what it's about. Jumped into it again, and if you play redraft leagues, I'm sure you guys can host Dynasty. Personally, I think there's some other sites that do Dynasty very well. Right. But if you play in redraft leagues, check out the new NFL app. It's a very nice app. I love that the film feature you guys had, so you could go back, watch your players' highlights from last week's game and see how they actually scored their points. Was it kind of fluky, or is this something that can be done over and over again?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, shout out to our development team, man. Like those guys worked really, really hard on that sort of thing. Like, you just kind of revamping it. I know they did a lot of focus group testing, just going out and asking a lot of fantasy players what kind of things they wanted. And look, admittedly looking at other sites and other apps that do it well and sort of borrowing from them as well. They also added the sort of that Instagram story feature that allowed us to kind of give you news and updates as well. So you can go in and it's like it literally like Instagram stories. If your player has a little ring around his face, you tap on it, and somebody's face, maybe mine or Adam Ranks or Michael Fabiano's, will pop up and give you some news that hopefully is both informing and entertaining as well. But I appreciate that. Yeah, and shout out to those guys because they did the hard work. We just sit here and talk. That's all we do.
Hey, knowing's half the battle, as they say. So thank you again, Marcus. For Tyler, Tim, and myself, we'll see you next week on the Dynasty Happy Hour.